Are we working? Yes, it says live. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everybody. Back again. My name is Ian Robbins, and I have with me my good friend again, Michael Miley, with his shades on. And Michael, where are you right now?
I'm broadcasting from an undisclosed location within the Green Mountain.
Oh, it looks absolutely gorgeous. And Alexander, how are you doing?
Good. And I'm in metropolitan Lyndonville, Vermont.
The big city.
So you guys are both in Vermont, and I'm in Texas right now.
Yeehaw.
And I have to say, you know, taxes. No, I mean like dollars, taxes. That's where he's from. Dollars, taxes. Sorry. Anyway, that was my dad coming out.
Have you visited the grassy knoll yet? Have you gone there?
Do I look like a conspiracy theorist to you?
I don't know.
I have to say the weather here is absolutely delightful, and I just came from Phoenix, which is basically an oven this time of year. So I'm loving the weather here in Dallas, which is remarkably temperate.
95.
I don't know. 95 to me feels like 72 at this point, you know, because I've been around 110 degrees consistently, like every single day. It's a nightmare. Okay. So anyway, today we are going to be talking about Bernie Sanders, as you can tell by the name of the video, the Sanders Swindle. I'm very proud of that clever little title. But before we do, Hillary Clinton just said something that's just so delightful and juicy that I just had to go into it before we start. Okay, so let me just do this, and we are sharing. So this is a YouTube video. It's a condensed version of basically of the speech that she gave recently, which is about the alt-right, which is sort of the new boogeyman, the new media boogeyman. And she uses the word racism, I don't know, 100 million times to describe these people. And one thing that I thought was quite funny, I was watching this on RT, is that she points the finger at Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is the primary culprit behind the rise of right-wing national extremism all over the world. So, Alexander, as a former member of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union and the head of the Young Communist League, what do you think about the accusation that Vladimir Putin is the head of a vast right-wing nationalist conspiracy?
It tells me several things. First, that Hillary Clinton is incredibly Russophobic. And Russophobia is a disease, very serious, contagious, and she is probably one of the most active person who spreads this disease around America and among American people. I hope American people will stay out of that virus that she spreads, and it will not go too far. But she's Russophobic, this is no doubt. Second, she probably doesn't understand what right-wing means. Because when she is using this term towards a person who has absolutely no connection with any right-wing party in Russia, and in his domestic policy as well as in his foreign policy, he is more centrist, maybe opportunist, but definitely not right-wing. So I don't see where she found any right-wing ideas in his actions. None. I don't even can imagine what can label him as a right-wing person, you know?
I know.
Finally, that he's a godfather of nationalists. You know, the point is that I never heard that he made any racist statement. He never made any kind of statement that will allow to blame him in racism or some kind of negative attitudes towards other type of people. Never heard that. So she's just made another nonsense. That's it.
Well, I think that whole speech, if you don't mind me interrupting there, is basically, every time Hillary Clinton opens up her mouth, she lies. And this speech was just a fantastic example of lie after lie after lie after, dancing around the truth. Clinton-esque is a word used in Washington and around the country for a reason, because everything that she does has this sort of sick, corrupt odor to it. And she's pointing fingers at everybody she can, trolls on the internet.
So, Michael,
people who review movies, Vladimir Putin, but really the fault lies in herself.
So, are you actually telling me that you believe what this communist Putin apologist is saying about this whole situation? Unbelievable. You obviously hate America.
Yes. Well, no comment. But it's just that she's blaming everybody. She is the cause, of this reactionary sort of movement, if you want to call it reactionary, the alt-right, which is what she was talking about in that speech. The only Republican candidate who possibly has a chance against Hillary Clinton, out of the 17 who are out there, is Donald Trump.
Right.
Absolutely, he was the only person. So
right.
Because he espoused a certain set of views that the other Republican candidates were unwilling or unable to do. So,
right.
That explains why he's here. And that sort of also explains why Bernie Sanders is here. So I think we can, moving into the next part of our conversation here, what happened to Bernie?
Yeah, just one more statement in regards of Hillary. Her supporters often state that, she's so skillful foreign policy maker and so on, and Trump will not be able to find common language with other world leaders. And how is in the world she's thinking she will find the common language with person that previously she compared with Hitler? Now she made another ridiculous, idiotic accusation of him, and she pretends to be a world leader who will be successful dealing with other world leaders?
Well, let me ask you a question, Alexander. What do you think? That's how America and Russia will negotiate. That's the footing that will be established if Hillary Clinton is elected president. What do you think the European leaders' thoughts on Russia are? They're getting hit the hardest out of the sanctions, really, in terms of oil and gas and other sort of things. Do you think there'll be a softening there before there's a softening in America?
It's already happening. There are a lot of European leaders and interesting development that is happening, for instance, in Italy. Regional parliaments vote in demand to stop these sanctions. So many European leaders actually visiting Russia, Russian leader visiting European countries. The dialogue is going on. It never stopped. It's more problem between Washington and Moscow, yes, but even look at the level of Minister of Foreign Affairs between Lavrov and Kerry. Just a few days ago, they spent 12 hours together negotiating. So
well, that was my next question to you. What did you think of that meeting where they came to clarity? That was the buzzword.
I don't know. It was not really much announcement about the actual results of that meeting. So let's probably go back to our topic.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Come back to the American shores.
Just give me one second here. I'm just sort of posting on Facebook, just in case people forgot, which I know they always tend to do. So let's see, posting it again, and I just want to give a shout out to the 3 people that are currently watching us right now, all of whom I'm sure are my mom and a couple other relatives. So, all I can say is, watch out, CNN, we're right on your tail. Okay, so Bernie Sanders. So let's start talking about Bernie Sanders. So, question. Is on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being, the paragon of virtue and morality, and 10 being bedfellows with Satan himself, how complicit is Bernie Sanders in DNC corruption? Let's see. Pat Buchanan. Mike Miley. Go ahead.
I think he was complicit from the very beginning. If you'll remember, these were statements that came out. Living where we live, we have sort of this interesting opportunity to be very close to sort of the political insanity that occurs in New Hampshire without actually being a part of it. And one of the small sort of news articles that you might have missed, because it was only 300 words and it was only put out on the internet of like WMUR, the local ABC affiliate, Bernie Sanders never, when he registered as a Democrat in New Hampshire way back last year, he said, "I am not running against Hillary Clinton." And then he just never said it again until, the convention. So,
right.
Of course he was in on it from the beginning. I think he's a shill for that sort of leftist politics in America. When really, if he were elected, I don't see the outcome being much different from Obama, if you will. Another supposedly historic election, which ended in, not a dissimilar outcome to George W. Bush or even Clinton before him.
Wow, that's quite a damning accusation on your part. So how about you, Alexander? What do you think?
I don't know. So there are obviously two options. One option is the whole his campaign was arranged with only one person, with one purpose. It's to legitimize nomination of Hillary Clinton from the Democratic Party. Because imagine Bernie Sanders didn't exist. So what in that case Democratic Party had to do? She really has only one candidate, all that apparatus, bureaucrats of Democratic Party nominated and decided on a long time ago. So they have only one candidate, but in that case their convention will look like Communist Party meeting. With one candidate on the ballot.
Well, I think it's interesting to point out it almost did wind up like a Communist Party meeting, because there was still sort of trouble on the convention floor. It was not quite the coronation I think Hillary's people and Hillary and the media wanted it to be. There was a lot of Bernie Sanders agitating going on.
It sort of reminded me how Gorbachev was elected president. He didn't want to stand for national elections. He was elected as a president of the Congress of the People's Deputies, and the alternatives to him were kind of pre-selected, and they were a joke. So,
well, may I point out that Bernie Sanders was most likely pre-selected over Elizabeth Warren for whatever reason, and he's sort of a joke too. I can't let you say that without sort of.
But
Bernie Sanders himself is.
There was definitely another idea behind of selection of Bernie Sanders, if it was really such a strategic plan, to use him as a sparring partner. That's how it's called.
Sure.
Sport. So it is first, but he definitely had another role. Hillary, absolutely not really popular among students, among young people, and among working people, really, because, come on. So she's popular among some, first of all, bureaucrats and political establishment and so on. But among regular people, I rarely see somebody who sincerely thinks that Hillary Clinton is the best choice for the president of this country. So it was absolutely necessary to steal young people, to steal leftists, to steer working people on her side. How could it be done? Only by such person as Bernie, who steered all their movement, really got excitement for these people, and then jumped into her boat and said that now he calls all his supporters to vote for her. I will tell you when I will be able to answer to this question with certainty that Michael seems to me already has. Maybe heard about movement that actually was organized among his followers. I believe it's called something about Bernie continuing revolution and so on. So I would like to see what will be left from this movement in about half a year, 1 year. If it is going to be the same joke as was Occupy Wall Street and similar events in the past, it will definitely mean that it was a strategic plan, and he certainly was used in Hillary's strategy and did not play an independent role. However, if that movement gets the ground, he continues to be actively involved in it, he continues to lead it, and eventually may come with the third party. I will say, I'm sorry, Bernie, I had some doubts about your integrity, but I don't have it now. I trust and I believe you're doing an important job in American politics, doing what you do. So I will be able to answer to this question, let's say, in 6 to 12 months.
Well, I don't anticipate a third-party run from Bernie Sanders. I anticipating him going back to his cushy job in Washington, sort of
maybe even accepting an appointment to the Secretary of State in her administration. I will not rule it out.
That's maybe not Secretary of State. I wouldn't put him in charge of something. I know Hillary Clinton has like brain damage and stuff, but I wouldn't put him in charge of something that big. Maybe Department of the Interior. He can watch over the national parks.
Right. Okay. So on the scale from 0 to 10, then he's a solid 9. Then right up there, kind of coming into hell every once in a while and talking with Satan about how to best.
No, I'd even say he's an 11 because he represents sort of this like third wave.
Michael, can you share with the name of the article that you wrote when you were editor-in-chief of the Linden State College newspaper? What was the name of that article about Bernie Sanders?
Which one?
Oh, I don't know. The one that I remember.
I hate Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, a delightful title. For a completely unbiased look at the election. Okay, so obviously,
I will come up with my formula: flying crocodile.
Yes, I know you. I love that. I don't know where that comes from. Can you tell me the origin of that? Where does flying crocodile come from?
Later.
Okay. Well, for those of you that never had the pleasure of attending one of Alexander's classes, every single time you did something wrong, or you didn't do the paper to the best of your ability, or you had a low grade, he would call you a low-flying crocodile, and that was just one of the delightful eccentricities that represent his character. So anyway, moving on. So let's see. So here he is himself on a scale from 0 to Hulk Hogan. How much does his skin look like a hot dog, Michael?
George Hamilton.
George Hamilton. Okay, that's good. Obviously, there are two different options. Okay, so one, he was in on it from the beginning. Two, he was not in on it from the beginning. I find your evidence compelling, Michael, but let's give old Bernie the benefit of the doubt for a second. After all, look at him. I mean, doesn't he have a trustworthy sort of grandpa sort of look to him? I mean, I see him and I just love the guy. I love all of his mannerisms. When he's talking, he's like he looks like somebody you could trust. Like he goes, it's the system. He's just like sort of he's the old Jewish wise man that you just want to go and talk about your
voted for the impression on Saturday Night Live. They didn't vote for Bernie Sanders. They voted for Larry David's impression of him.
Well, I think that there are some people that might be watching this video at some point that would beg to differ. But okay, so let's say that he was not in on it from the beginning. So that leaves us with a couple of different possibilities. And one is that he was threatened. One is that he was bribed. And neither of those speak volumes about the Clinton campaign's character. Because so this is Sanders.
I don't think we're shocked that those are two of the possible outcomes.
I'm not surprised at all. And one thing that I think is interesting is that I know a lot of people that gas on about Bernie Sanders, and I respect some of their sort of fiery spirit. And they seem to they like to say that this is completely unfair, and I can't believe that this ever happened. And of course, I mean, as a former and current Ron Paul supporter, going back to 2008, 2012, I mean, you just have to say, where were you when this was happening to our guy? I mean, this is very similar to what happened before, although I think you might argue that since Ron Paul is very, very stringently anti-Fed, that, you know, he's probably being opposed, he was opposed even more strongly than Bernie. But okay, so we have Bernie. Bernie's here. Bernie's looking happy. Bernie's talking with Jimmy Kimmel. I would play the video, but you know, technical problems. I still haven't.
Well, Ian, if you don't mind me interrupting, because I think you tapped into something very interesting and something very on topic, which is the role of that third party in America, the role of the Ron Pauls and the Bernie Sanders, and why can't we all just get along? And you think about a Jill Stein or a Gary Johnson, for that matter, and both of them could be potential Ralph Naders to either one of the major candidates, Trump or Clinton. And I wanted your thoughts on that, Alexander. You know, third parties, are they all spoilers, or do some of them have some legitimacy behind them?
Well, they definitely have legitimacy behind, but the system is such that it works against them. And if system stays the same as it is now, they have no chance. But if system changes, we may see quite an interesting, because these elections may be very boring in terms of, you know, outside of presidential elections. The Congress elections, not really very interesting, and in some states, it's only one person on the ballot.
Right. Do you think that the status quo in Washington, such as it is, at least in the Congress, will remain the same with a Republican majority sort of holding out? No real upsets or changes around there. I suppose it will matter on who's elected president too.
These two parties always will work against the appearance of the third party, definitely. And I think Democrats will be more against the third party than Republicans, because actually if the third party emerges, it will hit primarily Democrats more than Republicans, in my opinion.
You think so? Because some polls have the Libertarian candidate polling higher than the Green Party.
Because Democrats sort of position themselves in that pro-workers, pro-working people, sort of social democratic party, but they're not in reality.
Since when?
There is.
I know, it's astonishing.
There is another interesting thing. You know, I looked at the map of United States and state-by-state performance by Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, and notice one very interesting thing. All victories that Bernie had in primaries were from states that are on the north. Except for New York and one more state, all other northern states voted for Bernie. Every southerner state voted for Hillary. This is an interesting question, how we have new north-south divide line now. Well, what will come out of it, and how the third party can fit in this north-south new divide.
Well, you know, as a bunch of godless Vermonters, I can tell you, as somebody that's currently living in Dallas, Texas, it's very interesting to observe the way that Sundays work. I was with a new friend of mine, really nice guy, and we were walking towards Starbucks because I wanted coffee. I left my coffee make over at the school, so I can't have coffee in the morning. It's a terrible tragedy. So we go to Starbucks, and Starbucks is closed. Why is Starbucks closed? Because it's a Sunday, and I'm standing in the middle of a massive city in Texas, and it's Sunday, and Starbucks isn't open, and I'm like, what? And here, and also in Phoenix, when you meet people, the assumption is not are you religious or not. The assumption is what church do you go to? I mean, where do you go and stuff like that. And this is just totally new and alien to me. I have no problem with people that go to church. I have no problem with Christians. I tend to find them delightful. But it's a totally different world. I mean, it really is. It's completely different. And of course, when you're driving down the street, you can see billboards that are just sort of, if you want proof of the existence of God, then text this number and we'll send it to you and stuff like that. You know, it's bizarre. I mean, the two places.
Regardless for a wonder, yes, for local people, it's a norm of their life. I had the experience of 7 years of life in North Carolina, so.
Do you think what's coming out of North Carolina to be like social issues with the bathroom laws and all of this other nonsense? Our illustrious state government here in Vermont has decided that no sports teams will play in North Carolina, that no state employees, their vacations won't be paid for if they go to North Carolina because
you know,
of the bathroom laws.
Vermonters are just a bunch of cucks. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I completely 100% support any state that wants to, you know, prevent this this tidal wave of political correctness from stuffing, you know, an opposing ideology down the throats of a bunch of people that just don't want to live that way. And of course, people in the opposition are going to cry oppression, oppression, oppression. But you know, I have never met a single person in my life that I found that's expressed any sort of violence or intense dislike towards people that are in the LGBT community. I'm not saying they don't exist, but you know, if maybe 5% of the people that I met were like that, then I would have some, you know, I would give some credence to the argument that there's some sort of systematic oppression of gay people. But
well, let me interrupt you, Ian, because we're all circling around this sort of idea that Alexander first brought up, and that's Hillary Clinton won primarily in the southern states of the United States, and Bernie Sanders, a big challenge for him was getting the black vote. That was something that lost him in certain states during the primaries, and I think what about his message didn't work for them as opposed to Hillary, Alexander? What's your analysis of why Hillary took the South? Because you know, honestly, she's it doesn't seem like she's any better for them than Bernie, and Bernie provides more government assistance. You know, that's certainly part of his.
Exactly. I think it has something to do with connections among African American political leaders, their leaders of their community, because otherwise I don't really understand. Because what she
can share an article relevant to this.
Sure.
Okay, just give me a second. Okay, so here we go. But
Alexander, while you're looking at that, let me continue with that. Do you think Donald Trump, right now, the media, if you turn on NBC, CBS, ABC, which is all I get at this undisclosed location in the Green Mountains, you'll hear that Donald Trump gets 0 to 7% of the black vote, and you know the media is being generous when they give him 7%. Do you think that's an inaccurate assessment, and that actually many black voters, regardless of their income or social status, may actually vote for Trump?
I actually, when I had my own personal conversation with African Americans, they supported Trump. Those people that I personally know.
Right.
I don't trust all these polls. They don't make any sense. And the question is how well African American community really thinks about what is good and who is good for them and who is bad for them. Because I really don't know what Hillary Clinton can do to African American community and to racial relations in this country.
Well,
what
I mean,
he can do, I can tell you what he can do. Fight against illegal immigration certainly will help to many people to find jobs in the United States, those people who don't have them now.
Absolutely. Getting on illegal immigration, because it's one of the things I haven't heard Donald Trump say. And that's reforming the labor laws in this country. There's a reason why employers opt to go with illegal immigrants, and it isn't all just the Americans are too bourgeois for those jobs anymore.
Of course not.
The labor laws in this country also make it almost prohibitively difficult to hire and fire and manage employees. And we don't really hear much talk about that, even among Trump, the more conservative candidate. Now, you sort of assume that that's his position because of his job and his life experience. but really, that hasn't been brought up. And do you think that will be brought up, or are we going to stay on the more broad-based deporting 11 million people? Where's the selection?
I think he already started to talk about this, that this is not just a question of deportation and making our border real. It's a question who gets them job. Why do they accept it, their children accept it in private schools and so on? Because, come on, if your children going to private schools in America and you're a legal immigrant, question, how can you afford?
Right, right.
I can't afford private school for my kids, and I'm a full-time professor at the college.
Right.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Ian, and show us that article if you have it ready.
I do. It's right here. So let me just screen share. Oh, hello, Gary Johnson. Okay, give me a second. Let me just present to everyone. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here on Zero Hedge, which is one of my favorite sites that everybody should visit every day, we have, we're sorry, DNC apologizes to Bernie for inexcusable remarks. So, if anybody's interested, this is just a list of some of the juicier emails that were hacked from the DNC server sometime around when that was occurring, and I've chosen a few of them, and I think that they're rather interesting. This one with a somewhat inappropriate name. Let's see what this person has to say. It's a Jesus thing. I think she meant to say it might make no difference, but for Connecticut and Virginia, get someone to ask his belief. Does he believe in God? Has he skated on saying he has a Jewish heritage? I think I read that he's an atheist. This could make several points of difference with my peeps. My Southern Baptist peeps would draw a big difference between a Jew and an atheist. Okay, so here we have members of the of the Democrat National Committee openly saying, "Hey, you know, he's all these dumb rednecks down in the South. Do they know that he's Jewish? Do they know that he's an atheist? We need to play that up as much as possible." You know, which of course is just disgustingly slanderous, and of course it speaks volumes about their disregard for the way that they look at some of their constituents. Anyway, moving on. This is another really good one. I'm sorry, I really had fun looking.
It shows all that hypocrisy of the Democratic Party, you know, pretending to be people's party that fight for the interests of regular Americans. Such a nonsense.
Well, you know what the Democrat Party is now, and the drumbeat is constantly diversity, 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 diversity. Diversity is where our strength comes from, all of this stuff. And of course, I think that we can look around the world and we can pretty clearly say that, you know, cultural diversity creates quite a lot of problems. Now, it doesn't always not work, but in general, if you look at countries where cultural diversity is, you know, widespread, social cohesion tends to be tenuous at best, as opposed to a country like Japan or Korea or China or Taiwan or Thailand. And I say those because those are places that I've been personally, and I can testify to the you know, the absolutely astounding level of just how law-abiding all the citizens are. And I think it has a lot to do with the cultural homogeneity. And when I say culture, before you call me a racist, or, you know, everybody's going to call me a racist, it doesn't matter. I mean cultural, not ethnic. You know, if somebody is born in an Inuit tribe and then when they're 1 year old they become adopted by a Californian family, then of course that person is American. They adopt an American culture, they are American, it doesn't matter where they come from. That's part of the sort of cultural, that I think that in a lot of ways, when you import a lot of people into a different region that don't share any of your cultural values, you create a lot of problems. We could see that happening in Europe right now. So anyway, I went off on a little bit of a tangent. So let me just pull up this next article, and this is CNN. Okay, so this is about pushing questions onto, or there's going to be a CNN interview, and they're going to be asking questions, and this is the DNC basically saying CNN wants to know if we want to send them any questions that they can ask to structured in our favor. And it says, yeah, thanks for facilitating Lewis coming on today and bearing with us through the melee of GOP nonsense and cancellations and all that. Any particular points I want to make? We're going to stay Dem focused. Thanks. And that's Josh, I don't know how to pronounce that name, Sear, CNN, writer and producer, the lead with Jake Tapper. Okay, so we can see quite clearly from that one email that I've sent you. No, I'm just kidding. If you want to look into it, there's literally thousands and thousands of emails that prove this stuff. I just picked the ones that I like the most.
You have the one where they say that a lot of the polls are skewed in Hillary Clinton's favor.
I didn't.
There's one of those within the email hacks as well, which goes to what Alexander's been saying in this video and the last one, that the polls are totally fictitious and
right.
not to be trusted.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so hang on. I'm sorry, guys. Before we do that, I want to show to our viewers who aren't aware sort of the path that Bernie Sanders has taken over the past several months, because not everybody has time to watch the news obsessively like a bunch of weirdos like we are. So I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So this is Bernie Sanders. This video was uploaded the 27th of May, 2016. And I know you guys can't hear it. I'm just going to mute it. But he's talking with Jimmy Kimmel, and basically Jimmy plays a clip of Hillary. And this is the clip that the infamous clip where he asks if you become the nominee, and she just brushes him off and says, "No, I'm definitely going to be the nominee. There's no question about that." This is before it was even decided. And watching Bernie's reaction, like a gut punch. I just love that. And he's just like, it's just a little bit arrogant there. She's just a little bit arrogant. So this is the 27th of May, and now we're going to move on. Let's see. Hang on, where was it? Oh, it's right here. Okay, so this is July 23rd. He's on with Stephen Colbert, and Stephen Colbert asks, are you going to endorse Hillary Clinton? And let's see if you can read his lips. No. You see that? The next morning on CNN, are you going to endorse Hillary Clinton? And what does he say? Or are you going to vote for Hillary? And what does he say? He says, yes. You can't hear it. Take my word for it. Trust me, I'm a trustworthy person.
Well, I think, again, that goes into what I was saying at the beginning of this discussion, which is that he's always been on Hillary's side, as Alexander made the argument, sort of a stand-in for a legitimate Democratic contest. I think it might have gotten away from them. I think the Democratic establishment might have been a bit surprised at how far a 70-some-odd-year socialist would catch on with the American public, despite even being a Jew and an atheist. I think that's another sort of land. This election is just breaking sort of identity politic.
I know. I know it's
left and right. So it's very.
I feel so sorry for people who trusted him, who followed him through this campaign, because I cannot even imagine how they can feel right now, and how even more devastated they will be in months to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think here's another question for you, because we live in Bernieistan here. The Socialist Republic of Sanders up here in the Green Mountains. And do you think the Bernie people who were so disparaging of Hillary Clinton during the primary season, and Bernie all the way, and we're going to ride this train to the White House and everything else, do you think they're going to be like Sanders and follow in his footsteps and just turn around and say, you know what, we don't like Hillary, but Trump is worse, that we're going to vote for her because she's closer to our values than Donald Trump may be? Or do you think that Donald Trump might be able to pick up some of that leftist populist sentiment that Bernie Sanders has?
I hope they will vote for Trump, because in this case, they will have at least a chance that change may finally come. Because if they vote for Hillary, they will be just going more and more disappointed in American politics, which is an obvious tendency. It is already a tendency that's going for years. and it will just increase. Moreover, it certainly will disillusion many young people about American politics. So I hope that many of those who supported and followed Bernie Sanders will actually open their eyes, unplug their ears, and listen and study carefully what he says. Because if you compare and analyze Bernie's program and Trump program, at least in the part that I'm most interested in, foreign policy, they will find a lot of matching aspects. It's just fact that Bernie's program much more in aspects of foreign policy matching what Trump is saying than
trade policy as well. As a matter of fact, they're both against GATT and the TPP.
Right. Absolutely. I consider it's more like a foreign economic or foreign trade policies.
Yes,
okay.
Of course.
Now that we're getting into trade, I feel like it's a perfect time to transition into third parties. And I know we already kind of broke that ice, but I want to refer specifically to Gary Johnson and the Libertarian Party as it exists right now. Now, I think all three of us can say that we are at one point in our lives we've been very, very sympathetic with a lot of the things that most libertarians say, and I'd say that I still pretty much agree with quite a lot of the things that they say. The question that I have is, of course, the Libertarian Party's been around for quite a while now, and Ron Paul was running for the Libertarian Party in the 80s and 90s, and you know, Gary Johnson's been doing his thing. You know, everybody's always sort of known that they existed. This election cycle, I'm seeing a big push for the Libertarian Party. And of course, I'm seeing a big push in the media against Trump. And it's raising red flags because I'm jaded enough at this point so that when people tell me something that they want to do, I don't believe them. I don't believe anybody when they say that I'm going to come in and do X, Y, and Z. You know, Paul Ryan is supposedly some sort of, you know, Ayn Rand acolyte, and look at what he's done. He's a horrible sellout Judas traitor, and I hate him. But anyway, I don't trust any of these people when they say these things. So, I mean, I can listen to Gary Johnson, and he's just pouring sweet honey into my ears, and it just all sounds lovely. And wouldn't it just be great if
let me stop you there, Ian, if you don't mind, because I think you might be a little bit disillusioned with Gary Johnson, too. He's somebody, pull up that you had the article in front of you where he's like pro Black Lives Matter, pro TPP, all of these sort of ostensibly, I mean, I guess just because TPP has been billed by Madison Avenue as free trade, that a libertarian should immediately fall in lockstep with it. I mean, I think NAFTA, Murray Rothbard, one of the greatest libertarians of the 20th century, was against the North American Free Trade Agreement for obvious reasons.
Because he recognizes it for what it is. Now the thing is, a lot of international corporations, as they exist today, one, a corporation is a government entity. It only exists as a legal construct that is legitimized through the government. So I always have problems with people that point to errors in the free market and then they call it corporatism or what have you. Now I mean. I understand why people are wary of large corporations, and believe me, my opinions on this matter have evolved significantly since I was, you know, a little kid reading Ayn Rand, and then I was reading Milton Friedman, and then Thomas Sowell, and so forth, and I just used to think that government all bad, corporations good. Although that's, you know, it's sort of a straw man, but, you know, obviously I wasn't that stupid. But at this point, I'm very, very, very suspicious of these large corporations because, of course, especially when it comes to tax policy, regulations, what have you, this notion that the Democrats are going to come in and they're going to put an end to this, I think is foolish. Because these corporations exist on an international scale. So if you increase the taxes in one place, they're going to leave. Or they're going to do something else. They just have to move.
They already are leaving.
Right, of course. They just have to move to a different area. Now, let me tell you, the reason why I don't think that Donald Trump is a corporatist because he wants to lower the corporate tax rate to 15%. The reason that I say this is because if you look at the tax code, it is enormously complex and recondite, and it requires an army of lawyers to figure it out. It is completely ridiculous, and the reason that it is that way is because the extraordinarily high corporate tax that exists in the United States most negatively impacts the smaller companies that cannot afford the team of lawyers to come in and do all of this stuff. They are the ones that are paying the full tax rate, and it is crippling. It's utterly crippling. And who are the entities that are going to be behind, that are going to be against Trump's policy? They are going to be Apple, and they're going to be Microsoft, and it's going to be all of these massive companies that have a large global footprint that can take advantage. They can take advantage of all of these. What Trump wants to do is he wants to simplify the tax code, and he wants to lower the corporate tax rate, ostensibly cut it in half. What that would do is it would give a massive leg up. It would give a massive leg up to small companies and corporations that are trying to compete with these horrible sort of, I don't know, I mean, the octopus tentacle.
Don't blame the corporations entirely either. I mean, I think they've.
No, of course.
Corporations pollute. Yes, I mean, there's all sorts of horrible things that they do, but I think these corporations only exist in the way that they do because the government has been there to allow it to happen.
Of course.
And sort of course. Parasitically.
I would completely.
But we're already moving to the economic dimension that I believe should be our separate topic as well. Maybe next time, let's talk about foreign policy more specifically. What I hear from you, what I would like to hear from you, what kind of arguments you may provide to those who supported Bernie that they really should vote for Trump rather than Hillary or Jill Stein. I will perfectly understand that move.
Why do you prefer Jill Stein over Gary Johnson? Just curious. Alexander.
No, I don't really have much opinion on this. Michael,
okay.
Michael probably will be better about that.
I will say that I actually, if I was going to vote third party, which I'm not, I would vote for Jill Stein, but that's not really for ideological reasons. It's more of the numbers game of electoral politics in the state where I live.
And my major argument will be my colleague Brandon Stroop, who told me a lot of good things about Jill Stein.
Right. No, absolutely. Jill Stein is certainly.
And I respect his choice. Absolutely. My point: do not vote for Hillary. Vote for whoever else.
Yes, please. Anybody but Hillary.
I don't want our country to be a monarchy. In the same way like Saudi Arabia and these Gulfs.
Well, Alexander, can I stop you on that point? Because there's, you know what, dynastic presidencies is nothing new in American politics, actually.
I know.
I don't think it's a good thing, but it's certainly not a new phenomenon. We've certainly reached a new era of it, and certainly a new level of maybe corruptness at the top. But certainly, if you look at the Adams and the Roosevelts, there's always been sort of this underreaching sort of force in American history.
Bush father and Bush son, yeah.
And of course the Rockefellers almost made it in.
Almost.
And then they didn't. And of course the Rockefellers walked out when Barry Goldwater was about to make any kind.
So what's your arguments? Persuade me, if I was a follower of Bernie Sanders, why should I vote for Trump?
Okay.
Your argument.
You go first.
You want me to go first?
I want you to go first.
Okay, well, it's the same argument, really, I'd make for voting for Trump over any of the other candidates, which is that who carries the mantle of the anti-establishment sort of vote in this country, or the anti-establishment beliefs in this country? It isn't Gary Johnson. It really isn't Jill Stein. And it isn't Bernie Sanders. And it isn't Hillary Clinton, although Bernie Sanders may be the closest. It's Donald Trump. If you really want, it's the same argument you made before, Alexander. If you really want to see change in Washington, if you really want to see something big happen in our lifetimes, and something that has the most chance of taking down the same corrupt social order and financial economic order, really, that both libertarians and Bernie Sanders socialists talk about, it's Donald Trump. He isn't really a Republican. He isn't a Democrat or a liberal. He is Trump. And I think when Hillary Clinton talks about the alt-right, to go back to what we were talking about at the very beginning,
right?
She talks about she's yelling at demons. She's yelling at ghosts. The alt-right doesn't exist. She needs to have her head examined again because she's yelling at things that don't exist. There is no alt-right. There's Trump. And he represents everything that sort of the alt-right has become. If there was an alt-right, it existed before Donald Trump. And the alt-right, what Hillary Clinton is basically saying is, the alt-right is also includes Bernie supporters, and it also includes Jill Stein, and it also includes Gary Johnson supporters. And I think if all of those people really want to make a difference in Washington, if you're going to hold your nose and vote for a candidate, hold your nose for the one who stinks less, and that's Donald Trump. And in fact, he may be the hero we need. Not the hero we want, but the hero we need for the 21st century. So Ian, I think I've blabbered on enough now to have you form a cogent argument. Why don't you go
blabber ball onto me? Okay. So generally, what we've seen over the past several decades is sort of a continuation of one continuous, basically, chain of events that sort of where we can see that every single president basically does and says the same thing, and well, not says the same thing, but they basically do the same thing. When they get in, foreign policy is pretty much identical. The people that they that are advising them pretty much remain unchanged, and of course, the whole sort of disgusting. The whole sort of disgusting monetary system just continues to churn on, passing the buck on to the next generation without much concern for the catastrophe that they're putting off. So I would say that Hillary Clinton obviously is a continuation of that process. If you would like the national debt to increase by another $10 trillion, then of course she's the person to vote for. If you want to get involved in more foreign entanglements that involve more more people in the Middle East being blown apart and more Americans being scarred and traumatized and killed overseas, then of course vote for Hillary Clinton, because that is the person that she is. I can pull up a list of donors, but I won't bother, because I think that everybody knows that her list of donors is just absolutely enormous. If you want to look at it, who's giving her money, she's completely bought and sold. She has no soul. Now, when it comes to third-party candidates, the reason that I bring them up is because I'm suspiciously curious as to why they're being lifted up and paraded so much. And I think that they're doing it because they're assuming that they're going to steal votes from Trump more so than they're going to steal them from Hillary, which is why I'm suspicious of their motives to begin with. I've heard Jill Stein speak like 2 times. She strikes me as somebody that's reasonably authentic. And of course, and her vice presidential running mate, has been bashing Bernie for quite a while now. He sounds like a Marxist to me, but well,
that makes me want to vote for her now.
At least he's consistent. And of course, Gary Johnson spends more time attacking Trump than he spends attacking Hillary, which just I think that the strong libertarian position is to go anti-establishment. I can hear my own voice in one of your feeds. Okay, here we go. And I feel like Trump is clearly the anti-establishment vote, and if you want to take the country back, you need to vote anti-establishment. My proof of that is that the media absolutely hates him, the Republicans absolutely hate him, and the Democrats absolutely hate him. What more do you need? I mean, he's your guy. I mean, you have people like the Young Turks that are taking on Gary Johnson, and they're being very sort of respectful to him, and they're talking to him very politely. Just, oh, we disagree on a few things, but what do you think about this? They're doing it because nobody's afraid of Gary Johnson. I mean, it's so clear. It's so.
They're also doing it because they both share. Gary Johnson and the Young Turks both share something in common, and that's they are against Trump.
Right. Exactly.
So, they're very kind to him because they're both on the same side, if you will.
Right. So you have to analyze the situation. You need to see who has the money, who has the power, who are they afraid of. They're all afraid of Trump. They're all terrified of him. Everybody's afraid of him. Everybody. Everybody that you should hate. Everybody that's behind all of the corruption that's occurring in D.C., they're all afraid of Trump. That's reason enough to vote for him right there. I mean, it's just the guy, I mean, I've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen something like this happen, where, the civilization's basically going off a cliff, and the debt is escalating, old Roman style, and some guy comes from nowhere, and he sort of messes everything up. He's a self-made billionaire. He got $1 million from his dad, but then he turned it into a massive empire. He's extraordinarily competent. He's very, very smart. He's entrepreneurial. He knows how to fix problems. knows how to deal with people. I mean, what a godsend. I mean, I've never heard of this historically happening before.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Trump, not to praise him.
Very true. He's the Tiberius Gracchus of his day.
In any event,
excellent, Ian. I
go ahead.
completely agree with you. I will just add one more thing. If you want to have a new Cold War with Russia, vote for Hillary Clinton. Because I don't recall anybody so Russophobic, maybe McCarthy. But otherwise, it is such a serious case of Russophobia, which is, again, in the beginning, I talked about this. And if you want to have a new conflict with Russia, that's your choice is Hillary Clinton. If you wish to normalize relations with Russia, which I certainly wholeheartedly support, normalization, business relations, improvement of economic and political connections, military cooperation in Syria and Middle East in general, in Afghanistan and in plenty other places. But if you want to put all this cooperation in drainage, and if you want to see more Russophobic ideas and anti-Russian sentiments, I hate anti-Semitism. I do not like absolutely and never supported racism, but it is the same thing. Russophobia as bad as racism and anti-Semitism.
Right.
I reject all three.
In speech against
and she is a Russophobe.
It's she gives a speech about racism while implicating sort of the Russian boogeyman.
I know, it's the irony is so thick.
Gentlemen, I have an idea, Ian, if I can interrupt, because we're sort of reaching the end of the time here.
Yep, go for it.
I have based on our discussions today, I have two thoughts about what we could talk about next week, or in the future video. And that's either the economy or foreign policy.
Yeah, let's start with foreign policy, then we will...
Would you mind, this was my idea. We can start with foreign policy, but I had a thought, what if we put them to a poll on our Facebook page, those two questions?
Okay.
Invited the people on Facebook to vote for that.
I always pro-democracy.
Excellent, excellent. Well, so does that sound good to you, Ian?
They will vote, and we will
decide. I'm not as pro-democracy. I like to smash democracies. I always tell people,
we'll take 2 against 1 here in that case, and it is majority rule. Yes, democracy.
So I always tell people that tell me, you know, oh, when you grow up, you should join a union because you get all these benefits. I always tell them, I want to make a business just so I can crush a union. That's my whole thing. That's what I want to do. So anyway, Alexander, I think to put it simply and concisely, your message is get active, vote for Trump, or get radioactive.
Absolutely. I think, you know what people should do? It is to use, what is that called, the network marketing. So if you have, if you would like to support, you see, I don't really trust Republican Party apparatus.
I don't either.
This campaign, I think we, though,
I have no comment on that.
Trump, should take this matter in our own hands. And if you support Trump, recruit at least 3 other supporters of Trump and ask them to recruit 3 other supporters of Trump. And let's make a people's movement for Trump.
Go to the people.
For Trump. Spread this idea and this type of attitudes. But first, study. Study his program, study his ideas, compare, approach it scientifically, intellectually, and so on.
Right. Okay.
All right. And well, until next time, gentlemen, it's been great talking with you, Alexander. I'm going to look for you next week, so I'll try and...
you.
Great. So long, everybody.
Guys, signing off. Great discussion. We'll see you next week. Okay, bye, everybody watching.
Y'all come back now, you hear?